Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Legal Bites, the official podcast of Cummings and Cummings Law, where we focus on helping businesses and their owners re-domesticate out of volatile legal and tax environments to more predictable pro-entrepreneurship, pro-growth jurisdiction. On the road, truckers and particularly owners and operators have formed a surprisingly large part of my client base as a redomestication attorney. I'm going to speak now to my trucking and prospective trucking clients and explain how redomestication relates to and can benefit truckers particularly. I will then conclude by explaining how small and medium sized businesses, including truckers, can use redomestication to their advantage to relocate out of their existing jurisdiction to a new state while keeping their DOT number, federal employer identification number, contracts, insurance, and bank accounts intact with zero interruption. But first, a brief introduction. My name is Chad Daniel Cummings, and I am an attorney and certified public accountant serving clients in matters of business, tax, and commercial law. I am Chief Executive Officer of the multi-state, multi-attorney law firm Cummings and Cummings Law. And in addition to my day job, I also teach business and tax law at the university level. I hold 4 degrees, including 2 law degrees, as well as a bachelor's degree in accounting and a master's degree in taxation, in addition to 12 professional licenses and certifications spanning accounting, tax, audit, financial planning, and of course, the law. My firm website is www.cummings.law. Now I will speak to my trucking friends. You built the authority, you built the company, the DOT number, the MC number, the safety record behind it, the years, if not decades, of clean inspections, the factoring relationship, the insurance rate you fought to earn and keep. All of it sets on one legal entity, and that entity is your company, and that company has a home state. Here is where owner operators get hurt. A driver decides to leave a high tax state like California or New York. He calls a fly by night online filing service or maybe a less experienced attorney, and someone tells him, oh, the answer is simple, just dissolve your company and start fresh in the new state. That advice sounds clean. It is the death penalty to your livelihood. When you kill the entity, you kill everything attached to it. The federal employer identification number is gone, which means the Form 2290 heavy vehicle use tax history, the payroll accounts, and the bank relationship all restart from zero. The new company is a new applicant to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which means a new DOT number, a new entrant safety audit, and a compliance, safety, and accountability profile with nothing in it. You are literally starting over. Your inspection history does not transfer. Your crash-free years do not transfer. To an underwriter, you are a brand new driver with 0 months of operation, and you will be quoted accordingly, which is to say quite high. Brokers who ran your numbers before will run them again under the new company in the new state and find nothing worse. A carrier that shuts down and reappears under a new name in a new state, or even with the same name in a new state when they dissolve the company, draws exactly the kind of attention from FMCSA that no operator wants. Now, redomestication solves the problem. It moves the home state of the company you already have. The entity survives, the identification numbers survive, the authority, operating history, contracts, and bank accounts survive with no interruption because there is no new company involved and no assets changing hands. Now, consider where you are moving to. States like Florida and Texas impose no personal income tax. For an owner operator running a single member LLC or a subchapter S entity, that income flows through to your personal returns. So the state you call home is very important in determining what happens to every dollar you collect. California, New York, New Jersey, and Illinois, for example, all take a portion. Florida and Texas take none on income sourced to those states. Tax Foundation data indicate the average business that relocates to a state without income tax retains more than $12,500 every year. For a one truck operation, that could be a set of tires, a rebuilt engine, maybe a payment on a trailer. You know your business better than I do. Those are just examples. The regulatory difference matters as much as the tax rate itself. California has spent a decade, actually longer, treating trucks as a problem to be legislated out of existence. From emissions mandates that force equipment turnover to worker classification laws written by people who have never run a load. Texas and Florida start from the position that freight moves the economy and is therefore something to be treated with respect. Your international registration plan based jurisdiction and your international fuel tax agreement account follow your established place of business. So, this is not a paperwork exercise you can handle after the fact. It is the sequence that makes the move stick. Whether a change of domicile reduces your state tax exposure depends on your residency, where you keep your truck, and where you actually operate. Those are questions for your CPA, and they should be answered before you file anything. Now, what is not in question is this: moving your company is legal, and it does not require burning everything to the ground and destroying what you've spent years building. With this context in mind, redomestication is the lesser known legal process of transferring a company's state of domicile to a new state without dissolving it, without creating a new entity, and without triggering federal income tax consequences, but only when performed with the strict formalities required by the Federal Internal Revenue Code, applicable Treasury regulations, and the statutory frameworks of both the destination and departing states. When performed by a competent professional, the company retains its existing DOT number, federal employer identification number, contracts, credit history, and bank accounts. That is to say, there is zero operational or financial disruption, but only if you get it right the first time. That is why it is so important to work with a credentialed professional and save the DIY for home improvement, or better yet, working on your truck. I have successfully completed redomestications from all 50 states, and yes, that includes California, and for limited liability companies, partnerships, subchapter S corporations, and subchapter C corporations. So if someone is telling you it cannot be done, what they are really telling you is they do not know how to do it. Now, foreign entity registration, which is sometimes suggested by CPAs and even some attorneys, is simply not the same thing as redomestication, because foreign entity registration, also referred to as foreign qualification, does not change the company's state of domicile. In fact, it does the opposite by keeping the company in the former state indefinitely and merely adding another layer of compliance and tax obligations in your destination state, leaving you anchored to the state you thought you were leaving. Meanwhile, a traditional merger, which is still not the same thing as redomestication, creates a new distinct entity in the destination state, may and often does require the issuance of a new federal employer identification number, as well as DOT number, and can trigger serious tax consequences. Finally, dissolution should not enter the conversation at all, because as I explained a few moments ago, dissolution terminates the company. It is the legal equivalent of the death penalty for your business. Dissolution is a going out of business maneuver, not a relocation strategy. Dissolution is often a taxable event at the federal and state levels, and when performed incorrectly, can expose the owners of the company to unlimited personal, yes, you heard me correctly, personal, joint, and several liability for the company's liabilities, known and unknown. That should keep you up at night. That is because the so-called veil of liability protection no longer exists because the company no longer exists. If you think dissolution is a cost-saving option, you may be in for a very rude awakening. And if you have a so-called professional suggesting dissolution as a relocation mechanism for your trucking venture, I implore you to seek better advice before you make a mistake you cannot undo. Redomestication, when paired with a change of personal residency and that is an important and, a reduction or outright cessation of business operations in the former state, can reduce or even eliminate state tax exposure there for the entity and its owners. Don't take my word for it, ask your CPA. Now is the time to consider acting before the various state legislatures consider changes to their respective state laws to hinder or even eliminate the possibility of redomestication. If you have questions regarding redomesticating your existing trucking business out of California or out of New York or out of another state, please use the link in the description for more information on this process, or click the link in the bio to schedule time for you and I to speak one-on-one about your specific scenario. Again, my name is Chad Daniel Cummings of the firm Cummings and Cummings Law, and I hope that you found this information helpful. As always, the information in this presentation, like all of my presentations, is necessarily general in nature and is not legal or tax advice, nor should it be construed as such, because that advice, by definition, must be specific to a particular set of facts and circumstances. Should you have any questions regarding this information or the content of any of my many earlier presentations on the topic of redomestication, please visit my firm website at www.cummings.law, not .com, but .law, to schedule time for a consultation. I look forward to that opportunity to speak and perhaps even work with you very soon.